devotees can draw from the life of Ajamila. So we will be discussing. We will continue to discuss the same thing. Before that, I would like to offer my prayers. चक्षुर उन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्री गुरु श्रीयुत पदकमलं श्री गुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्री रूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं स्वजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीन बंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते जय पताका स्वामी नित्यानंदिनी नमो आचार्य पदाय निताय कृपा प्रदाय गौरगत धामदाय नगरग्रामतारिणे नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नित्यानंदिनी नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य। So Hare Krishna. Before we continue discussing the life lessons from Ajamila, from life lessons that we can draw from the pastime of Ajamila, we will try and have a recap of what we discussed in the previous class. Srila Prabhu, we had discussed as to how lust can, what are the effects of lust, how Ajamila was such a exalted Brahmana. Even in the class of Brahmanas, he was the most pure, he was the most pure Brahmana that anybody could find. In spite of that, he fell prey to a prostitute. He fell prey to the entire scenario of a Shudra having an intimate relationship with a prostitute, and because of this, he fell prey to his lusty desires, and he marries that prostitute. He leaves his wife and his parents, and he gets married to that prostitute. And we also saw as to how what are the effects that lust can have, and and how Maya can come and give her test in any way, and we as devotees must know that Maya is also the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She is the external energy of the Lord, and just as we are trying to serve the Supreme Lord, even now she's been allocated the service of by the Supreme Lord to take care of this material creation, and to make people feel that this material world is all comfortable and we don't have to go back to the Supreme Abode. So as we are serving the Supreme Lord, she is also in the service of the Lord. And she keeps giving us tests. As Ajamila, even though he was an exalted Brahmana, Maya Devi had come to Ajamila in form of a prostitute, and he fell prey to it. And we also discussed how we can also fall prey to it, and how Srila Prabhupada had given us the way to come out of, not fall into the clutches of Maya was to always keep praying to the Supreme Lord to engage us in devotional service. So once we are engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, we are over and above the three modes of material nature. So we had discussed as to how Ajamila was a Brahmana, and he saw a Shudra and a Shudrani having an intimate relationship, and that's when the lusty desires in him had awakened. And we saw what effects lust can have in if the lusty desires awaken, if the thought of satisfying our senses awakens in us. We saw what are the effects. So we discussed that lust has 3 effects. That is, it makes us blind, and we discussed a pastime of Chintamani and Shilana, as to how he became blind in order to, meet Chintamani. And then it takes away the good association. And how Kala Krishna Das, even though he was in the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, in spite of that, he got attracted to a woman and he left the association of Mahaprabhu and he went behind the women. But later Mahaprabhu got him back. But the learning that we got is that even though Supreme Lord was giving his personal association, even then the lusty desires were so strong that it did not, Kala Krishna Das did not think twice to leave Mahaprabhu's association, and it binds us to the material world. So we know how strong the senses are. So once we start satisfying them, they never get satisfied, and the desires just keep increasing. As a result, we have to we get bound to the material world, and we can never go back to the spiritual abode. So, I was hearing the lecture. This is a series of lecture that was given by His Holiness Bhakti Prachar Parivrajaka Swami Maharaj in Kanpur. And Maharaj has very wonderfully explained the various lessons, life lessons that we can draw. And in continuation to the same thing, where we had stopped last time, we had discussed what were the effects of lust. So Maharaj states that we always try and, hold on to the problems. So we know that this material world is dukkhalayam, ashashvatam, and it is Krishna tells that padam padam yat vipadam. So at every step there is some or the other difficulty that comes up. So we have to not hold on to the problems. We know that material world is created in this way, and we know that only in this material world there is something called as lust. But when we go back to the spiritual world, it is only filled with love. It is only filled with love given by the Supreme Lord. So Maharaj tells that instead of only concentrating on the problems that is being filled in the material world, we can try and focus on what solution can we draw from what solutions can be taken up so that these problems are mitigated. So Maharaj also tells that every problem has its own solution, and every material problem, as we have heard, it has a spiritual solution. So material problems do not have material solution, and material problems can have only spiritual solution. So Prabhupada always gives this example of a person who is a jailer. So one of a criminal in the jail cannot, release another criminal who is also being bound in the jail, who is also under the laws of the country, the laws of the state. He cannot release another criminal. Only a lawyer or a police who has key to the a cell can release the criminal out of the jail. And so similarly, all the material problems have a spiritual solution. So we will try and discuss what is the solution. How can we, because falling prey to lusty desires, all of us will fall prey, because an exalted Brahmana like Ajamila only fell prey to it. We have so many instances where there have been exalted devotees and they've fallen prey to their lusty desires. So when they can fall prey to it, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita are stating these instances so that we do not become a prey of these these desires that are so that we do not become prey to these desires in that rise in our heart. So there are various instances, and that is the reason there are various instances that are being stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we will now discuss as to how can we not fall prey to these lusty desires, or even in case lusty desires come, how can we stay unaffected by it, and how can we continue our devotional service. So Maharaj tells that gives an acronym. The acronym is LUST. So L is for leave association. So when it comes to association, there are two kinds of association. That is, one is bad association, and the other is good association. And we all have heard about association so much. So now we know under which category should we fall, and what association are we supposed to take. So Maharaj tells that when we have to leave bad association and always try and keep our association with devotees. So when we associate with the same kind of people, it is a basic thing that we also try and develop the same qualities. So initially we were discussing how a devotee doesn't have to make any extra efforts to develop the 26 qualities that is being stated by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So how does he develop it? When he comes in association with the same kind of people. So we have always given this famous example of a drunkard. So if anybody associates with a drunkard, even though he doesn't drink, even though he wasn't drinking before associating, just by his association, he would start discussing about the same thing. And after a certain period of time, we can see that that person would also be drinking. So Krishna tells, Machita Matgata Prana Bodhayanta Paraspara Katayantas Chamam Nityam Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. So Krishna tells that if you associate with my devotee, why should you associate with my devotees? Is because they're always speaking about me. So, Bodhayanta Paraspara, when Krishna is telling that Bodhayanta Paraspara, it is not some Prajalpa talk that goes on. When devotees come together, they keep Krishna in the center and they only speak about Krishna. So when we associate with devotees, only Krishna Katha goes into our heart, and all the anarthas in the heart are being destroyed. And that is how we get that is when sadhu comes, it is being emphasized by the senior Vaishnavas or your circle leader that come to the temple and take their association. It is because there are so many anarthas in the heart, but when one comes and hears Krishna Katha from such a pure devotee, then he's first of all getting association, because in the last Sunday feast, we had heard as to how sadhu sangha is so important, and even a lavamatra sadhu sangha can change our life, change our entire lifestyle. So Maharaj tells association is very important, and it is very important that we leave bad association and take good association. So we may ask that we have to go on for preaching, and at that point of time we have to associate with all kind of people. We cannot tell that this is a bad association or this is a good association. So Maharaj, for this Maharaj tells that it is called sadhu sangha. So giving your sangha sorry, it is called Sat Sangha. So you could have heard it as Sat Sangha means giving your association, giving your Sangha to the people who are not Sat. So when you give your, it is you giving association and not taking their association. When you give your association, you're giving Krishna to them, and you don't get influenced by their association. And this happens when we have very good sadhana. So once one of the disciples of Prabhupada, he was telling to Srila Prabhupada that Prabhupada, in the Western world, it is very difficult to find people to preach, because all of them are busy with their own work, office, and everything. So it is very difficult to preach in the Western world. And but Prabhupada, on Sunday, there is a nightclub that goes on. If we go there, then, we can easily preach to everybody, and, even distribute our books. So what the disciple asks Prabhupada, so Prabhupada, what do you think about this idea? So do you think that it is a good one? So Prabhupada looks at him, and Prabhupada always encouraged devotees to take risk. But Prabhupada always said that a devotee must take calculated risk. He must take a risk in such a way that, his sadhana is also not affected. And he also doesn't fall from his spiritual position. So Prabhupada telling that, so you make sure that once you go to give, once you are going there to preach, you make sure that you come out. So Prabhupada is telling that you make sure that you give your association and not take their association and stay at the nightclub. So this is what, this is how important the devotees association is. And we can see as to how we all are meeting in the morning japa session, and we are giving each other's association. So Maharaj tells that if we take good association, then we are away from the attack of Maya, or we are away from our lusty desires. And the second solution is that understanding the bad effects of lust, that we have already discussed, as to how lust makes us blind, and lust takes away the good association and binds us to the material world. So we'll move on to the next one, that is sincerely seeking shelter. So one has to seek shelter. So Nitai Sevini Mataji, she was mentioning as to how, why did Ajamila fall prey to it, is first thing is that when he saw that a Shudra and a prostitute were having intimate relationship, he saw about it, and he kept on contemplating on the same thing. He kept on thinking about the same thing. They were laughing like this, they were having an association like this. He just kept on thinking about it to himself, and he did not go seek shelter of anybody else. So it is a very common thing that happens to the devotees. We as devotees think that, oh, this is a very small thing, it is not going to affect my bhakti life, it is better I don't discuss it with anybody and keep it to myself. So when we start hiding things, Rupa Goswami tells that one of uh, um, the exchanges that we have to have with devotees revealing our mind. So we have to always, my Shiksha Guru, he tells me that you have to always have that one person in your spiritual life wherein you have revealed everything to him. And once we are revealing what is going on in our mind, it is easier for the other person to understand. So he tells me that if you are not revealing yourself to your guru, then you, or Krishna is sitting as Paramatma in everybody's heart. So even though Krishna knows it, until and unless you go tell Krishna about it, he's not going to come and help you. So similarly, if we don't go and tell our mentor as to what problems we are facing in life, it is impossible for us to come out of this three modes of material nature. And Maharaj tells that why is that we are not seeking shelter of anything, is because in this Kali Yuga, people think that we can manage everything, and we always think we can manage and manage and manage, and it never happens. And the problem starts getting bigger and bigger. And the same thing happened with Ajamila. If Ajamila would have gone and confined it to his guru as to what was going on in his mind, then there was 100% chance of Ajamila not falling prey to the prostitute, because guru will always help you to get back to your spiritual platform. So it is very important that we seek shelter. So, and in this Kali Yuga, because as we cannot perform such sacrifices that is being mentioned in the Shastras, or have temple worship, it is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes down to give Harinam Sankirtana, and we have to seek the shelter of the holy name. So Maharaj gives various examples and various instances where devotees have taken the shelter of the Supreme Lord and His holy name, and how they have come out of the three modes of material nature. So the famous example of Pandavas we are seeing as to how Kunti Maharani prayers is being going on. And Pandavas, they were not at all fearing about whether they are winning in the battle of Kurukshetra or whether they are losing it, because they always had taken the shelter of the Supreme Lord. They knew that if they if they stay alive in the alive after the battle of Kurukshetra, they're going to continue serving the Supreme Lord. And in case, even if they quit their body, they're going to go back to the spiritual world, and they're going to resume their services to the Supreme Lord in his supreme abode. So they were so dependent on the Supreme Lord, and because they took the shelter of the Supreme Lord, they had nothing to fear. Guru Maharaj always tells that if you surrender 25% to the Supreme Lord, then he will protect you 25%. If you surrender 50%, then he'll protect you 50%. And if you surrender your complete 100% to Krishna, then Krishna is going to protect you 100%. So e yatamam prapatyante tamstataiva bhajamyam ham. So the Krishna tells that you surrender unto me and I will protect you. So Guru Maharaj also tells the same thing. So we can see how Pandavas, they had completely surrendered themselves, and they were always in the shelter of the Supreme Lord. So we know how how they were always in the mode of good, in the Shuddha Sattva, and they were not affected by the three modes of material nature. And even in case of Parikshit Maharaj, when he came to know that he just has 7 more days, and he has to quit his body, and sorry, and he had only 7 days, and he had to quit his body. Maharaj tells that there is a specific prayer in Srimad Bhagavatam wherein Parikshit Maharaj, he is thanking the Supreme Lord that he had come, that that he has given him notice of his death, that he is going to leave his body in 7 days. He was even though it was a curse, devotees such as Parikshit Maharaj, he took it as a blessing, and he was thanking the Supreme Lord. and he was telling that he was given the notice of his death, and he had 7 days for quitting his body. And we can see how Parikshit Maharaj took the shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we know, as because of Parikshit Maharaj, Bhagavatam was revealed to all the conditioned souls of Kali Yuga. So when Parikshit Maharaj came to know this, he could have done anything. He could have, thought, I want to satisfy my senses, and he could have materially enjoyed, because he was such an opulent king. He was the grandson of Arjuna, and he had everything, but he decided that, he wants to give up everything, and he did not take shelter of any material thing. When such an incident happened, when he was cursed by Shringi. He did not take the shelter of any material thing or any material person, but he took shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we know how Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there are various instances how such exalted people, they've taken the shelter of the Supreme Lord, and the Lord has always protected them. And coming to Gaura Leela, we can see as to how our Harnamacharya Srila Haridas Thakur, he took the shelter of the holy name. So Prabhupada always compares the pastime of Haridas Thakur and Ajamila, and he tells as to how they both were in the same situation. Maya tested them in the same way. To Haridas Thakur also, a prostitute had approached. She had come to Haridas Thakur, and she was requesting him to satisfy her. And in the similar manner, Ajamila also fell prey to the prostitute. But the difference in both the situation is that Ajamila thought that he would be able to manage and come out of his situation without seeking shelter of without seeking the shelter of Guru or Krishna. But in case of Haridas Thakur, what made the difference is that Haridas Thakur took the shelter of the holy name of the Lord. So when prostitute approached Haridas Thakur, he told her that you wait for today. I will complete my chanting and then satisfy you. And the next day also she came, and again Haridas Thakur made the same statement. He told, you wait until I complete my chanting, and then I will satisfy you. So he kept on doing the same thing. And when he asked her to wait, and he was chanting, he was taking the shelter of the holy name. And when Ajamila took the shelter of the holy name, the prostitute who had come to defame Haridas Thakur, she became a pure devotee. But in case of Ajamila, since he did not take the guidance of his guru, or he did not approach Krishna when Maya had come, when Maya had approached him, he fell prey to it. But Ajamila, Haridas Thakur, on the other hand, he was so surrendered to the holy name that he took the shelter of the holy name. And we can also see when he was beaten in 22 marketplaces, and he was asked to stop the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. He makes a statement telling that, what are you telling about stopping the chant stopping to stop chanting? If you cut my entire body into pieces, and then every piece in my body would keep chanting the holy name of the Lord. So it is said that when Haridas Thakur was being beaten up in those 22 marketplaces, even at that point of time, Krishna, has the holy name, was protecting Haridas Thakur. So once we surrender unto the Supreme Lord, so we can see, because even in Shishthashtakam it is being mentioned that the Supreme Lord is being so merciful, and he has invested all his potency in his holy name. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells that we are so unfortunate that we do not have taste in chanting the holy name of the Lord. So, in spite of knowing the glories of the holy name, we are so conditioned that we are unable to chant the holy name of the Lord. But on the other hand, Haridas Thakur, he was chanting 3 lakh holy names of the Lord every day, and Mahaprabhu was just so impressed by him that he names him as Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur. So we can see, so it is the response that we make to the situation. So Haridas Thakur took the shelter of the holy name of the Lord, and as a result he was out of the entire situation. So he could convert a prostitute into a pure devotee. So seeking shelter, so in this Kali Yuga, Mahaprabhu is time and again emphasizing on how all the a result that we can gain by performing the yagnas that are performed, that are mentioned in the scriptures. All of it can be achieved just by chanting the holy name of the Lord. And lastly, tolerating. So this material world, as I mentioned, it keeps on giving us a different test. Maya Devi keeps on giving us test, and it comes in form of these lusty desires. It is not that we will never fall prey to it. We will fall prey to it, but when in such situations, when we know that we are going to fall prey to it, Maharaj tells it is better we tolerate. Because in Shishtashtakam also, the third verse of Shishtashtakam, it is mentioned, Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. So we have to become tolerant. It is Mahaprabhu tells that you have to become more tolerant than a tree. So as Prabhupada always compares Haridas Thakur's the pastime of Haridas Thakur and Ajamila, how did Haridas Thakur get over the situation? Each time prostitute came, he used to tell prostitute, I will satisfy you tomorrow, maybe when I complete my chanting. So Maharaj tells we have to try and postpone such sense gratifying activities. We always try and postpone our sadhana. We will tell that we'll read Bhagavatam tomorrow, or we will come do extra rounds tomorrow, chant Narsimha Kavacha tomorrow. We keep on postponing our spiritual activities, but that is where we are going wrong. We have to postpone such sense gratifying activities, and we have to always try and engage ourselves in the devotional service of the Lord. So each time Haridas Thakur came in, he was each time the prostitute came to Haridas Thakur, he was trying and postponing the meeting, the entire program with the prostitute. He was telling, I will satisfy you after my chanting has been done. And as she came each day, she got influenced by the chanting of the holy name, and she became a pure devotee. So Maharaj tells, situations keep coming to us, and what changes is the way we respond to it. So Prabhupada always gives an example of itching. Prabhupada tells, so if there is we have the tendency of itching. When there is the tendency of itching, we itch, and for that moment we feel satisfied, and you keep on itching and itching, then we can see blood comes, it starts bleeding. That area where we have itched, it starts bleeding. So similarly, lusty desires are the same thing. If we start satisfying them, then we'll just be bound to it, and there'll be no way of coming out. We can never tell, I will satisfy this desire now. And once it is being satisfied, another desire comes. So if we keep on satisfying the desires, as it tells the effect of lust, we will keep bound, we will bind ourselves to this material world. So Guru Maharaj, I will just end it up in another 2 minutes. Guru Maharaj gives this example of marriage. So sannyasis, Guru Maharaj tells that, when sannyasis who have taken sannyasa diksha, even if this desire of getting married and entering grihastha life comes, Guru Maharaj tells, okay, let it come. You tell, okay, tomorrow I will get married, and then tomorrow you tell, okay, the day after tomorrow. So you tell that when this desire comes in, you tell tomorrow I will do it tomorrow. But Guru Maharaj tells that this tomorrow should never come. So when that tomorrow never comes, there will be no space for satisfying these lusty desires. So summing it up, how can we not fall prey to lusty desires is when we live the bad association and understand the bad effects of lust and sincerely seek shelter of Guru, Krishna, and the holy name of the Lord, and tolerate such provoking situations. Then we'll be able to come out of these lusty desires. So I stop here, and I thank all of you for giving your patient hearing, and Mathurapati Prabhu and Parabhakti Mataji for this opportunity and for my self-purification. Hare Krishna.